Hola alumnos, hoy estudiamos los sustantivos, los géneros, y los artículos. The information for this lesson can be found in your textbook on pages 26 and 27. So before we go more in depth about los sustantivos, nouns, it's very important to understand the nature of nouns, los sustantivos, in Spanish. A noun, un sustantivo, names a person, a place, a thing, or a concept. And in Spanish, all nouns are classified into two categories. They are either masculine or feminine. A noun is frequently preceded by a definite article, and a definite article includes el, la, los, and las, or it can be preceded by an indefinite article, un, una, unos, or unas. Our definite articles, el, la, los, and las, all mean the. The indefinite articles, un or una, means a or an, and unos and unas means some. It's very important to know that whether we use the definite article or the indefinite article, regardless, our articles need to reflect our nouns in both gender and number. So now that we know that the article needs to reflect the noun in both gender and number, let's first take a look at the gender of nouns. Nouns that refer to males. If we're talking about a noun and we are specifically referring to a man or a male child or a male individual, any kind of male, and also most nouns that end in O are going to be considered masculine. Now, please keep in mind that I did say most nouns that end in O. We're going to take a look at some nouns that don't necessarily follow this rule. But for right now, most nouns that end in O, or any noun that pertains to a male, is considered masculine. Similarly, most nouns that end in a, the Spanish a, or any noun that refers to a woman or a female is considered feminine. And once again, please remember that definite and indefinite articles must reflect the gender and number of these nouns since they are modifying the nouns. So we have as an example on our lesson guide, el maestro. And remember what maestro means, that's a vocabulary word. El maestro. That would be the teacher. If we're talking about a male teacher, we're using the definite article el. If we want to use the indefinite article, we can say un maestro. Notice that we are using el, or we could use un, because it reflects the fact that maestro is a man. We're referring to a male teacher. Similarly, if we were referring to a female teacher, we would say la maestra, or we can say una maestra, because we are reflecting the fact that we are referring to a female teacher. We also have the noun bolígrafo. Bolígrafo being a masculine noun, it happens to follow the rule of a noun ending in O being masculine, and so we can use the definite article el bolígrafo, or we can use the indefinite article un bolígrafo. Likewise, when we are referring to pluma, this is also a noun that follows that general rule of ending in a, therefore it's feminine. So we can use the definite article la pluma, or we can use the indefinite article una pluma. Now, just because we're saying that nouns are either masculine or feminine, it doesn't necessarily mean that if a noun is feminine, it's a girl. When we're talking about the pen, we're not saying that the pen is a girl, her name's Sally. No, it's just in Spanish. Because Spanish is a Romance language, it follows the rules of most Romance language, well, Romance languages in general, and that nouns are broken into the two categories of being either masculine or feminine. Okay, next rule as far as gender with regard to our nouns. If we have a noun, most nouns that end in L or R in Spanish will be considered masculine. There are some exceptions, but for right now, just know that most nouns that end in L or R are masculine. For example, we have the noun rector. Rector ending in R, and it follows that rule. Therefore, it is masculine, and we can either use the definite article el or the indefinite article un. We also have the example of papel. Papel, following that rule of ending in L, therefore, it's going to be masculine, and so we can use el or un as our article. Most nouns that end in de, or nouns that have that ending ion, will be considered feminine. For example, we have the noun universidad. Universidad ending in de. Therefore, we will use the article, or we can use the definite article la universidad, or we will use the indefinite article una universidad. Likewise, we have the noun lección. Lección having the ending ion, therefore it will follow that rule and it will be considered feminine. And we can use la or una as our article. Now, as far as our articles are concerned, we will know whether or not we want to use a definite article or an indefinite article based on the context of our sentence. Remember, definite articles refer to the word the. If we're talking about something specific, the university or the lesson, the president or the paper, something specific, we are going to use a definite article. However, if we are referring to something that's not very specific, it could be any university or any president, any paper, or any lesson, a lesson, some lessons, then we can use the indefinite article. For right now, we just want to make sure that we are all familiar with the fact that if our nouns end, most nouns, most nouns ending in O, R, or our nouns that end in L are going to be masculine, and also if they refer specifically to a man. And then most nouns that end in a, de, or ion, or any noun that pertains to a woman or a female, will be feminine. On the other side of your lesson guide, you will notice it says that some of these nouns do not follow these rules. We just have to learn them for what they are. Learn them, live them, love them. So these nouns are la clase, meaning the class. El día, the day. El mapa, the map. Or la mano, meaning hand. This brings us to a very important point. How do we know whether or not, when we're learning new vocabulary, how do we know whether or not these nouns are masculine or feminine? It is extremely important when we are learning new vocabulary, and you'll notice as our vocabulary is presented to us in the book, the articles are included. Therefore, when we are learning new vocabulary, we need to make sure we don't just learn the vocabulary word, but we learn the word with its article. And this occurs with our nouns. So, when in doubt, take a look at the article that's there, and it should help you decide whether or not that noun is masculine or feminine. Additionally, like we said, our articles modify our nouns based on number. In this instance, we are going to learn how to make our nouns plural. So, if you take a look at page 27, you will notice it says all nouns are either singular or plural. In order to make a noun plural, if it ends in a vowel, we are going to add s. If our noun ends in a consonant, we are going to add es. Okay, that's for most cases. So if a noun ends in a vowel, add s. If it ends in a consonant, we're going to add es. So for example, the chart that we have on our lesson guide, the singular form, we have el libro. To make that plural, since libro ends in a vowel, we're going to add s. We need to make sure our article modifies our noun. So first of all, since we have el libro, we know that we're working with a definite article. So we want to include a definite article when we make it plural. To say the books, we are going to say los libros. In a similar fashion, la pantalla. La pantalla being feminine and singular. In order to make it plural, we need to make sure our article matches the gender and number of that plural noun. So, since pantalla ends in a vowel, we're just going to add s. Las pantallas. Muy bien. Notice we have the singular version of student. Una estudiante. Here we're referring to female student. To make that plural, since estudiante ends in e, we're just going to add an s. Unas estudiantes. Next we have un borrador. Borrador ending in the consonant R. We know that we must add es. And so the plural form of un borrador will be unos borradores. And finally, we have un reloj. Add es since it ends in j, unos relojes. Now we have special nouns. These nouns end in an with an accent mark, an with an accent mark on the a, es with an accent mark on the e, or ion. In this instance, we will need to drop the accent mark before we add es. Therefore, alemán, we must drop the accent mark, and it will become alemanes. Francés, drop the accent mark, it will become franceses. And lección, drop the accent mark, will become lecciones. Finally, if we have a noun that ends in zeta, we must drop the zeta and add ces, to make it plural. The example that we have is the noun luz, meaning light. Luz, because it ends in zeta, we need to drop the zeta and add ces. We will go from una luz or la luz to unas luces or las luces. So make sure you go back and review how to make our nouns, to determine the gender of our nouns, and also how to make our nouns plural, as well as review how you should appropriately use your articles. And until next time, nos vemos.